5 companies owe $662 billion. It is not on any of their balance sheets. Not hidden, not fraud, just not there yet. And a ratings agency has been counting it for them. Start with what is being built. This year, the 5 largest cloud companies are set to spend more than $1 trillion on artificial intelligence. Amazon, around $200 billion this year alone. Microsoft, $190. Google, $180. Meta, $140. These are not research budgets. They are concrete, transformers, and land. A single campus of this generation covers millions of square feet and draws power measured in gigawatts, which is to say it draws what a mid-sized city draws. That is the scale of the thing. And the Bank for International Settlements pointed out the obvious problem with it. In its annual report on June 28th, the BIS noted that these commitments now exceed both earnings and free cash flow. Therefore, the money has to come from somewhere else. It is coming from the bond market. Morgan Stanley expects $570 billion of AI-related debt issuance this year. By the end of May, $236 billion had already priced. That is roughly 4 times the pace of a year earlier. On February 25th, Moody's published the number this video is named after. Amazon, Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft, and Oracle have committed to data center leases worth $969 billion in total. Of that, $662 billion has not commenced. The buildings are not finished. The leases have not started. And under accounting rules, a lease you have signed but not begun does not appear as a liability. That $662 billion equals 113% of those 5 companies' adjusted debt. Here is the mechanism, and it is worth slowing down for. When a cloud company leases a data center, it often signs a residual value guarantee. If it walks away and the building is worth less than an agreed threshold, it pays the difference. That is a real obligation. But under generally accepted accounting principles, if the company judges that renewal is not probable, the guarantee stays off the balance sheet. Moody's gives the example. Meta has leases commencing in 2029 carrying a $28 billion guarantee threshold, recorded as not probable. The BIS has a term for the wider structure. In its March quarterly review, it called it shadow borrowing. A special purpose vehicle or a joint venture acquires or develops the data center. Private credit funds capitalize it. The cloud company signs a long lease and takes the compute. The debt sits in the vehicle, not on the company that will use the building. This is not the same as a chip maker taking a stake in its own customer, which is the story most people have already heard. This is quieter, and it is much larger. So who is lending? Increasingly, not banks. Morgan Stanley estimates the world needs about $2.9 trillion of data center investment through 2028. Big Tech's own cash flow covers roughly $1.4 trillion of it. The gap is the opportunity, and Morgan Stanley sizes the private credit share of it at $800 billion. Much of that, in its own words, moves into off-balance sheet structures. These are not obscure firms. Blackstone, Blue Owl, Apollo, PIMCO, BlackRock. They are the largest pools of private capital in the world. And over the last few years, their lending to AI-related companies went from close to nothing to well over $200 billion. Here is what one of these looks like in the real world. In October last year, Meta and Blue Owl closed the financing for Hyperion, a data center campus in Richland Parish, Louisiana. $27 billion of debt, plus $2.5 billion of equity through a special purpose vehicle arranged by Morgan Stanley. Blue Owl's funds own 80% of it. Meta owns 20%. S&P rated the debt A+. It priced at 225 basis points over treasuries. PIMCO anchored the deal with $18 billion. BlackRock took 3, and Meta carries a 16-year residual value guarantee on the campus. Now the uncomfortable part, because the alarmed version of this story is not entirely fair. Moody's own analyst, David Gonzales, was explicit. It is not, he said, as if they have avoided a liability through structuring. The $662 billion is not missing, it is early. The A+ rating on Hyperion is a real rating from a real agency. And on power, the data cuts the other way entirely. An Electric Power Research Institute paper covering 2015 to 2024 found that every doubling of data center capacity was associated with retail electricity prices falling about 3.5%. But something changed this year. On June 28th, the Bank for International Settlements named an AI capital expenditure bust and a collapse in circular financing among the biggest threats to global financial stability. It compared the moment to canals, to electrification, to the dot-com boom, and it said every one of them shared a trait: capital in excess of what commercial returns could ultimately justify. And the market is starting to agree. Apollo's data show hyperscaler bond orders covered nearly 5 times the deal in February. By July, below 2. So follow it to the end. Who pays? The buyers of the paper. PIMCO's $18 billion and BlackRock's 3 are pension money, insurance money, fund money. Who collects? The private credit managers earning the spread and the banks arranging the vehicles. And who loses if the demand does not arrive? The same EPRI researcher who found that prices fell had the answer. If the grid builds capacity for demand that never shows up, the fixed cost gets spread across fewer customers, which is a sentence about your electricity bill, and the early numbers are already moving. PJM, the largest grid operator in the country, projects a $6.3 billion increase in consumer electricity costs over 3 years, mostly from data center demand. In Virginia, which hosts more data centers than anywhere else, residential prices rose more than 13% in a single year. None of this is illegal, and none of it is hidden. It is disclosed in footnotes, priced by rating agencies, and counted by Moody's in public. The only thing that is missing is the balance sheet line. Follow the compute. Every source in the description